All right, let's dive in. Today we're tackling family finances. We've got a whole stack of articles and budgeting guides, even some more unusual tips. Hopefully by the end of this we can all save smarter, budget better, and maybe even find some extra cash we didn't know about.
Going through all of this stuff, what's really striking is how much emphasis there is on being proactive with your money, not just reacting to bills, but really setting yourself up for
Yeah.
success, long-term financial wellness.
Okay, I love that. Proactive, not reactive. And speaking of proactive, one thing we saw a lot in these articles is setting smart savings goals. I've got to be honest, sometimes these acronym things make me roll my eyes a little bit. What's the strategy behind these SMART goals?
Well, it really is more than just a catchy phrase. It's a whole system for setting goals you'll actually achieve, which is the point, right? So SMART, it stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Like instead of just saying, I want to save more, which, let's be real, is about as helpful as saying, I want to travel more, you'd say something like, I'm saving $5,000 for a family trip to Disney World in 18 months. See how much clearer that is? You know
Yeah.
exactly what you're working towards.
That's huge. Just having that target in mind, Disney World, 18 months, $5,000, it suddenly feels so much more doable. Speaking of doable, were there any tools or resources that really stood out for keeping track of these goals, actually making progress?
The good news is you've got options, which is always nice. It all comes down to what works for you. Online banking with dedicated savings accounts can be a game changer. It's like having separate piggy banks for each goal, but digital. Budgeting apps are really popular too, and a lot of them connect directly to your accounts, your bank and credit cards, so you can see where your money's going in real time. And don't rule out those tried and true spreadsheets. Sometimes the old ways are the best, right?
So true. Sometimes simple is best. Okay, so we've got our goals, we've got our tracking tools, time to face the music, or maybe the budget spreadsheet. How can we make this whole budgeting thing less scary? Dare I say, even a little bit fun?
A lot of it boils down to awareness. Before you can create a budget that works, you need to know where your money is going now. A lot of the experts we read recommended tracking your spending for a month, every single penny. You might be surprised what you find. Then once you've got a handle on that, you can look for a budgeting method that suits your life. That 50-30-20 rule is pretty popular.
50, 30, 20. I feel like I've heard of that, but remind me how that one works.
Sure, so basically you're aiming to use 50% of your income for your needs, 30% for your wants, and then that last 20% is for savings and paying off debt.
Okay, that makes sense. Did any of the sources mention any pros or cons to using that method?
Yeah, totally. Like anything, it's not one size fits all. If you're living somewhere super expensive, for example, it might be tough to squeeze rent or your mortgage into that 50% for needs. The good thing is there are tons of other options out there. You've got the envelope system, where you actually divide your cash into different categories each month. Or there's zero-based budgeting, where you have to give every dollar a job.
I like that. It's like a choose your own adventure for budgeting. Okay, so I'm imagining families listening to this, maybe with kids running around. How do we get everyone on board with this whole financial planning thing? I feel like the potential for eye rolls is high.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's definitely not always easy. But a lot of the articles emphasize making it a family affair. So instead of just like laying down the law with a budget from on high, try having regular family money meetings. Visual aids like a savings thermometer can be really engaging for younger kids. And who doesn't love a good challenge, right? You could set a family goal to cut back spending in a certain area and make it fun, a little competition.
That's such a good idea. I'm already picturing a who can find the best grocery store deals challenge. It's like turning those errands into a game.
Exactly. It's about shifting that whole perspective. Instead of budgeting is restrictive, it's budgeting is empowering.
Budgeting now with more power. Okay, I'm ready. Let's talk about some of those pesky monthly bills that always seem to drain our bank accounts. I'm ready to get strategic, lower those expenses. Where should we start?
Utilities. You can often find a lot of savings hiding in those bills.
Mm.
One article actually suggested an energy audit. It might sound kind of intimidating, but a lot of utility companies do them for free or at least discounted.
An energy audit. What exactly is that?
It's basically like a checkup for your home, but for energy efficiency. They come in, see where you might be losing energy, like drafty windows or old appliances. Honestly, you wouldn't believe how much those little things can add up on your energy bill.
I had no idea. I'm adding energy audit to my to-do list, like right now. Okay, so the articles also mentioned LED light bulbs. Are those really all they're cracked up to be?
Oh yeah, definitely. They're way more efficient than those old school bulbs. Plus, they last much longer, so you're saving money in the long run. It's one of those small changes that makes a big difference over time. And speaking of small changes, one of the simplest but most effective things is just, turning off the lights when you leave a room.
It's a classic for a reason, right? Sometimes those little habits are the most important. All right, let's move on to another one of those big budget busters, groceries. How do we shop smart and save, but still, eat well?
2 words: meal planning. It's all about having a list and actually sticking to it. So many impulse buys happen at the grocery store. And honestly, don't underestimate generic brands. A lot of times they're just as good as the name brands, but way cheaper.
Okay, that's fair. I'll admit I've been burned by generic brands before, but for the sake of saving, I'm willing to give them another shot. Anything else on those grocery hacks?
Oh, bulk buying.
Mm.
Especially when things are on sale. Just, make sure it's something your family will actually eat before it goes bad.
Yeah.
And if you've got the space, those wholesale stores can be a goldmine for savings.
Awesome. I love these tips. All right, last one in our bill-busting bonanza. Entertainment. How do we still have fun without busting our budgets?
Get creative. Think outside the box. There are so many free or cheap options out there. All those articles were full of ideas like free concerts in the park, family game nights, even just utilizing your local library. They've got books, movies, some even have passes to museums. It's about the memories, not the money, right?
So true. And sometimes those simpler experiences are the best ones anyway. Okay, we've tackled saving strategies, we've busted some bills. Now I want to go even further. How do we level up and turn saving into a family habit?
Saving for a little bit is one thing, but making it part of your lifestyle, that's the real goal, right? One of the things that came up a lot was the 52-week savings challenge.
I've heard of that. How does that one work again?
Basically, you start by saving a little bit, like maybe $1 the first week, and then you increase it each week throughout the year. Just a
Yeah.
fun, easy way to kind of ease into saving more.
It definitely makes it less intimidating, that's for sure. What about those apps everyone's always talking about? The Roundup apps, automatic savings, all that. Are those things really as life-changing as they seem?
They can be. Those Roundup apps are pretty cool. They'll link to your bank account or your credit cards, and every time you buy something, they'll round it up to the next dollar and put that extra change into your savings. So say you buy coffee for $4.50. That extra 50 cents, it's just gone, straight to savings.
It's like tricking yourself into saving without even realizing it.
Exactly. And then a lot of banks offer those automated savings tools where you can set it up to automatically transfer money to your savings every month. You're basically paying yourself first, which is always a good strategy.
Instead of waiting to see what's left at the end of the month, we're making saving a priority from the start. I love that.
Exactly. And since we're talking about priorities, we should probably mention teaching kids about finances.
Right. If we want them to be good with money as adults, it makes sense to start early, right?
Absolutely. That classic 3 jars method is a really great way to introduce little kids to the idea of spending, saving, and even giving. You just take their allowance or any money they get and divide it between 3 jars. Spend, save, give.
I love how visual that is. Plus, it takes the pressure off of us parents to be financial experts, right? They learn by doing.
Exactly. And as they get older, you can introduce more complex ideas like budgeting or investing, maybe even that compound interest we were talking about.
Ooh, that's a deep dive for another day. Okay, so we've gone from the basics of saving all the way to compound interest and side hustles. Anything else we haven't covered yet?
We've covered a lot, but we can't forget about the maybe not so glamorous, but super important part of family finance, the emergency fund. It's like that umbrella you keep tucked away, hoping you'll never need it, but when those financial storms hit, you're going to be so glad you have it.
So true. And I feel like a lot of people, myself included sometimes, we put off building an emergency fund because it just feels so overwhelming. What did the experts have to say about making it a priority?
Start small. Be consistent. Even if it's just $25 a week, that's $100 a month. It adds up faster than you think. The goal is to work your way up to having 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses saved. I know that seems like a lot, but it's about having that peace of mind, that safety net.
That makes a lot of sense. It's not necessarily about having this huge chunk of money just sitting there. It's about knowing you've got a buffer if something unexpected happens. Speaking of, where's the best place to keep an emergency fund? Asking for a friend who may or may not still hide cash under their mattress.
Yeah, the mattress money method is a little outdated. Look, you want to keep your emergency fund somewhere safe, but also easy to access. High-yield savings accounts are pretty popular for this.
I feel like I've been seeing those everywhere lately. High yield savings, what are those all about?
So they're basically like regular savings accounts, but they give you a better interest rate, which means your money grows faster. but you can still get to it easily when you need it.
Okay, so it's earning more interest than just sitting in my regular savings account. Are there any downsides to having my emergency fund in one of those?
Just one thing to keep in mind. Some high-yield savings accounts have limits on how many times you can withdraw money each month. Usually not a big deal for an emergency fund, but it's good to know.
Good point. Okay, so let's recap. We've got our SMART goals, our budgeting game plan, we've got our bills busted, our side hustles humming along, and our emergency fund is nice and funded. I'd say our finances are officially powered up. What's the biggest takeaway from all of this, from this deep dive?
If there's one thing I hope everyone listening takes to heart, it's that financial wellness. It's not a race, it's a journey. And there's no right or wrong way to do it. Find what works for you, for your family, for your lifestyle, and celebrate those wins along the way. And hey, you don't have to do this alone.
Mhm.
There are tons of resources out there, like financial advisors, even online communities to help you along the way.
That's such a good point. This has been amazing going through all of this information with you. So many great tips and ideas to help families feel better about their finances. And to everyone listening, if this sparked even more questions for you, keep learning. There's a whole world of financial knowledge out there waiting to be discovered. Until next time, happy saving, everyone.
Tons of possibilities, right?
Yeah.
It really does feel like there's a side hustle out there for everyone, especially now with so much online. One that stood out to me, especially for families who are like crafty or artistic, was selling handmade stuff online.
Oh, yeah.
Etsy, right? Like turning your hobby into a business.
That's such a good one. I actually have a friend who makes pottery, and she sells it all through her online shop. It's amazing.
So inspiring.
Yeah, it is. The articles also talked a bit about freelance work, which, again, it just seems like that's becoming more and more common now that so many people are working remotely.
For sure. And freelancing can be so flexible, which is a huge help for parents, especially if you need to work around a childcare schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you just want to work from home. There are tons of freelance gigs.
Mm-hmm.
Writers, virtual assistants, social media managers. It's kind of amazing.
Wow, so many options. Okay, so we've gone from saving basics to side hustles, pretty much everything in between. Is there anything else we need to cover from our research here?
We've covered a lot of ground, that's for sure. But there's one more thing, something we can't really skip when we're talking about family finances. The emergency fund.
Ooh, yes. That's a big one.
It's kind of like that umbrella you keep in the back of your car, right? You hope you never need it, but when you do, you're really glad you have it.
That's such a good analogy. And I think for a lot of people, myself included sometimes, it's really easy to put off building an emergency fund because it just feels like this big, scary thing.
Yeah.
So how did the experts recommend we approach it?
The key is to start small and then just be consistent. Even if you can only swing like $25 a week, that's still $100 a month, which adds up. The ultimate goal is to have 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses saved. It sounds like a lot, but again, it's about that peace of mind, having that safety net there if something happens.
Yeah, it makes you feel so much more secure knowing you've got that buffer. Okay, so let's say we're ready to start building that emergency fund. Where's the best place to keep it? I'm assuming under the mattress isn't the most strategic move.
Yeah, the mattress method's a little old school. You want to find an account that's safe, but also easy to access if you need it. High-yield savings accounts are a really good option for that.
Okay, high yield savings. I keep hearing about those. What's the deal with them?
They're basically like the cooler, older sibling of regular savings accounts.
Okay.
They give you a much better interest rate, so your money actually grows faster. But you don't have to lock it away for years to get that higher interest.
So it's earning me more money than if it was just sitting in my regular savings.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, I like the sound of that. Are there any downsides I should know about?
Not really downsides, but one thing to be aware of is that some high-yield accounts have a limit on how many withdrawals you can make each month. It's not usually a problem for an emergency fund, but it's good to keep in mind.
Okay, good to know. All right, let's do a final rundown. We've talked about setting SMART goals, creating a budget that works for us, those ninja bill-busting strategies, even starting a side hustle, and of course, our trusty emergency fund. I'd say that's a pretty good foundation for financial success. What's the most important takeaway from all of this?
You said it. It's all about building that solid foundation and remembering that, everyone's journey is going to look a little bit different. There's no right or wrong way to do this. The important thing is to find what works for you, what fits your family and your goals, and just celebrate the wins along the way. And hey, you don't have to do it all on your own. There are financial advisors, online communities, so many resources out there to help.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. I feel like I learned so much. And to everyone listening, we hope this sparked some ideas for you, maybe even inspired you to take control of your finances.